So this is a demo of Polity. My name is Ben Garrett. I'm the developer. Before I get into this demo, what I'd like to do is just kind of point out the main goals or the purpose of Polity. So what I'm really trying to accomplish is to increase participation in local politics. And I do this by making politics easier to understand, increase transparency, as well as just overall making it easier to participate. So as I go through this demo, you're going to notice some things look incomplete, and that's because they are. I'm still very much developing out this application, and there's still a lot more work to do on it. That being said, let me go ahead and just jump in here. So what you're looking at here, this is just kind of the main page for Polity. The URL or the website is https://polity.app. So Polity is also a progressive web application. So if you load this up on your phone, it'll actually look and function just like a normal almost like a native application on your phone. I won't be going through it on the mobile variant. I'll just be going through it on the desktop version. Okay, so if I go over here to state, you can see here this is all the legislation. Or what I'm looking at here is the legislation for this past session. So I can search for bills, I can filter bills based off of different categories, as well as I can load up the legislation for the past years. Okay, so let's take a look at the conceal carry firearm amendments. So here, when I go into a piece of legislation, I can see, of course, bill number, session information, the title, who sponsored the bill, the status of the bill, and then right here I have some kind of information about the bill. So of course, a general description and the bill highlights. This is taken directly from the legislation. Then I also have a bot summary. So every bill has a bot summary, and what this is it's a automatically generated summary of the bill from some AI that I've created utilizing machine learning. So the idea is when someone goes into a piece of legislation, within 30 seconds to a minute, there's enough information here that they can form an educated opinion and then provide their feedback to whatever level of government it would be. So in this case, it would be the state legislatures. If it was a city item, of course, I would go to like the city council, right? Right down here, you can also see the actual bill text, and then you can also see the different revisions on the bill. So this is something that's very new, and so I don't have very many revisions of the bill stored, but going forward, it will show kind of the daily changes of the bill, or you can select the different changes. So here I can see this was removed, and then you can see, looks like just the numbers were kind of updated. The line numbers are updated. I can also over here go to more information. I can see things that are being added to the bill. I can see parts of the Utah code that are mentioned in here. So judicial code, motor vehicles, public safety, criminal code, human services. I can of course drill down a little bit deeper to see exactly which ones are mentioned. Okay, so this just kind of gives some more information. So let's say, hopefully I have a good enough opinion about this bill. What I can do is I can then provide my feedback. So I can say, I disagree, I somewhat disagree, I'm neutral, somewhat agree, all the way up to agree. So I'm just going to say I agree, and this is very important to me. Submit my feedback, and of course, this is feedback that would then be sent to the legislatures. There's also a comment section, which I'll come back to that in a second. And then I can also view the voting data for this specific piece of legislation. So here's everyone that voted yay, nay, absent, and abstain. This is just kind of a graph of the breakdown of the yay and nay votes. Same thing here, except for it's by party. And then right here, by users. I also have a user summary section where users can add their own summaries. And I'm actually going to go back to another bill here that I added a summary for back in 2020. We'll go to the bigamy amendment. So here's a summary that I created. This bill makes polygamy among consenting adults an infraction, less than some traffic tickets. However, in cases of fraud, domestic violence, abuse, human smuggling, it still remains a felony punishable by up to 15 years in prison. So the user summaries is a place where someone can go and provide their own summary. There's some rules kind of surrounding it, like the summary has to be objective. It's not a place to where you put your own opinions or you draw your own conclusions. Those type of things are not allowed in the summary. The summary really should be based off of the content within the bill itself. Okay, so let me go over to the comment section. So every piece of legislation has a comment section associated with it. So there's a few rules associated with the commenting section. First, there's zero anonymity. So when you make a comment, your full name, city, and how you voted on that piece of legislation is attached to each comment. Your comment has to be on topic, so it has to be directly related to that piece of legislation. Comments like I agree or I disagree aren't really allowed. You can say I agree because, and then provide context, but your comment has to actually have substance. And then there's no personal, religious attacks, racism, or profanity. The reason I have these rules is because I'm trying to make this a platform where it's not like a Facebook conversation, right? If you wouldn't feel comfortable making your comments, say like in a town hall meeting, you probably aren't going to feel comfortable making that comment here. The no anonymity I actually tie into the voter registration database. So during the sign-up process, users can choose to verify or not verify their voter registration. Only verified voters right now are the ones only able to comment. I plan on handling moderation through community moderators as well as AI. So if I typed all politicians are idiots and tried to submit this, it should pick it up. Okay, yeah, it says there's an insult. And of course, if this was something that was actually appropriate, I could still check that and I could send it through. So as people participate within the application, what I do on the back end is I create a political profile for each user. So as I go back here to my dashboard, I can see here are my two elected representatives. So Jerry and Brad, you can see down here at the bottom, Jerry and I, we agree almost 46% of the time. We disagree 14% of the time, and we're neutral about 40% of the time. That's based off of feedback that I've given on legislation in relation to how he voted on those bills. Brad here, you can see 56%, we agree, disagree 15%, and we're neutral 28%. One thing on the neutral is that's either I voted neutral on a piece of legislation, kind of like this right here, or that person was either absent or they abstained from voting on it. So I can also go back here to the state. I can look at all the representatives, and I can see how much I agree or how well I'm represented, essentially, by the different legislatures. So if I go to who agrees with me, say, the most, you can see there's a lot of Republicans here. I'm a fairly conservative guy, so no surprise. But once I start going down a little bit, you'll see, okay, it's like right here, here's a Democrat that actually agrees with me more than quite a few Republicans. And one thing that I'm kind of trying to point out to people here is it's more important to vote for the individual and not necessarily just, along party lines. Yeah, anyways, that's what I'm trying to kind of point out by showing all the comparisons here. Going back to, let's say if I want to look at Jerry. So if I go into Jerry here, I can see information about him. He's a business owner. He's a Republican. Again, here's how well he kind of represents me. His education, affiliations, the committees he serves on, his conflicts of interest. So he's the owner of J&J Produce or J&J Gardens, that nursery here in Utah. There's some healthcare stuff here. Then I can also see the bills that he has sponsored or he's sponsoring. Of course, I can load up past years' bills that he has sponsored as well. So I can also go into his votes. So right here, this is just a breakdown of his votes for this year, 2021. I can load in some more years here, and I can see the breakdown for each year, his yay, his nay votes, absent and abstain. Right here, this is just his historical votes. The blue line is the total votes. Green is yays. Of course, absent and abstains here. And then his nay votes for each year. I can kind of drill down farther to see, for 2021, how did he vote on bills that had to do with crime, business. So I can load up different categories. I can search for bills, see all the bills he voted nay on. And then right here on this compare vote, these bills that show up here are bills that I provided feedback on. So any bill that I have not provided feedback on will not show up here. But I can see how maybe he and I voted on any specific bill. So going up, I can look at his political contributions. This right here, the green line, is his contributions for each year. The red line is his expenditures. And there's a little graph down here where I can see, who contributed the most to him. This is for 2020. I can load up past years. And you'll notice that chart down here at the bottom is updating, as well as, may not be able to see it very well, but these tables right here are also updating. It's loading in all the year's data. Okay, so now that I have all his data essentially loaded in here, I can say, all right, well, who's given him the most money? Well, Gathering Inc. gave him the most in the form of a refund. But yeah, I can go through his contributions, see who's giving him the most money. I can also see what he's spending his money on. So for instance, if I type in J and J, so he has spent, here's $25,000 of his political contributions at his own business. If I type in J ampersand J, you'll notice here's another $17,000. So that's about $42,000 of his political contributions that he has spent at his own business. Some interesting stuff you can sometimes find by going through this data. Okay, so this is data that I essentially have loaded for all the politicians. So any politician can go in and you can see this same type of information. So kind of going back a little bit, so as people start using the application, I'm building that political profile for them on the back end. So if I go over here to state users, I can see here are the users kind of at the state level, and here are the points that they have. So the points are, people gain points from giving feedback on legislation, providing good comments, writing user summaries, as well as getting comment endorsements, which is kind of like Reddit badges, if you're familiar with that. And I'm trying to kind of gamify the application a little bit. So if I go into Elizabeth here, I can see Elizabeth and I agree 77% of the time. We disagree 0% of the time, and we're neutral 22% of the time. I can also see some information about her. I can see some of her comment endorsements, as well as comments that she's made. I can view her voting history, and I can also view their kind of the vote comparisons. So this is the legislation that we've both provided feedback on. So the idea is, or what I'm trying to do, is not only kind of create this gamification that promotes a culture of good public engagement, but what if Elizabeth, maybe she's not very politically inclined, but I think she might make a good candidate for city council, right? At that point, I might go to her and, maybe suggest she run for city council. One other thing that I'm going to be adding in here is a section to where you can see everybody who is running for political office. So if you could pretend that this is, say, everybody who's running for a city council seat, I can go into any one of these individuals, and if they're a user within the application, and if they've been participating in their local politics, I can very easily see how well someone might represent me. So Jake and I, who is actually my brother, we agree 53% of the time. And then, of course, Elizabeth and I agree 77% of the time. If Jake raised, $1 million for his campaign and Liz raised $100, well, obviously $1 million can take you a long way. But, who am I going to vote for, right? Well, I'm still probably going to end up voting for Liz just because she better represents me. So, I'm hoping with my application that I can mitigate how much money influences politicians and who ends up getting elected. Instead of driving down the street and you see vote John Doe for city council, and nothing about this person, now if that person is a user within the application, you can very easily see, is this someone that I actually would end up voting for? So this is, the application in a nutshell. There's still a lot more that I'm going to be adding in, like a petition platform, polling platform. Hopefully within the next couple months, I'll have all of the city data loaded in here. But yeah, that's essentially it. So I appreciate you guys taking the time to watching this demo video. If you have any questions, you can email me, ben@polity.app, or you can shoot me a phone call, 801-400-9202. Thank you.